Chapter 16, Louisiana. The people were in awe as they set their sights on beautiful Louisiana. The air was refreshing, and the water was delicious, but with great beauty came great danger. Adders, deer, minks, muskrats, raccoons, possums, rabbits, squirrels, nutrias, turtles, alligators, woodcocks, skunks, foxes, beavers, civet cats, armadillos, coyotes, bobcats were just a few animals they saw. However, the mosquitoes, or those nasty mosquitoes, they hated with a passion. Hala and many in her battalion were amassed and happy to see the new creatures they had only seen in pictures. The different types of snakes and the blackbirds were her favorites. They could hear the people slapping and sweating the mosquitoes before Dark Eagle stopped the caravan, started a fire, and smothered it to create a smoke-filled forest. These bad boys are out control. He forgot about these darn mosquitoes, and he sure don't miss them. Dark Eagle said as he, too, was in sweating the mosquitoes. They mixed lavender oil, vanilla extract, and lemon juice into a container and handed them to the people, instructing them to rub them on their clothes and skin. The people came landless, and the children enjoyed their journey and learned many new and different things about their surroundings and the history of the land, that many recalled reading about, but being there had an entirely different meaning. They passed Pecan Island on Highway 82, and Dark Eagle was teaching when he got a message on his earpiece. Dark Eagle. It was Miguel, the speedster. Go ahead, Miguel, Dark Eagle replied. We have a situation here. There is an old bridge about half a mile long and about 60 feet wide. It looks sturdy, but there is no other way to cross to the other side unless we travel over 100 miles around it. Dark Eagle hesitated. We will take a look at it once we get there. When they arrived, Dark Eagle and some engineers inspected the bridge. Miguel approached. He went ahead and searched for different ways to get to the other side, but it's much more dangerous than this way. White Lake is to our west, and Vermilion Bay is to our east, and there's at least a 50-foot trap. Dark Eagle and his men serve at the bridge and voiced their options. It's simple, everyone goes across one at a time until everyone has passed, shouted one elder. Dark Eagle agreed. Everyone made it across safely as the speedsters headed up the road to survey the land ahead of the group. Keeping their primary route in mind, they headed north on Highway 35 until they reached Lado, Louisiana. Dark Eagle shouted, "Label," and began laughing. Isabelle, remember, used to tell you about the trips we used to make with my uncle every year. Isabelle frowned. Yes, it was Label, as you said. Dark Eagle said, my uncle created Label, the name was Lado. Lado, Louisiana was the type of person who hated anyone who corrected his speech, just a countryman with a country art. This is it, he didn't remember until we got here and saw that. Pointing to a large boulder, getting off his shorts, started digging up some of theirs around the boulder. Yep, here it is. Uncle Jolly brought this when he was about 16 years old. Dark Eagle cried as Isabella got off her shorts and read, to my favorite nephew Cabrem, from Lake Providence. Dark Eagle got back on his shorts and shouted, he now of a quicker way back home. Follow me. The caravan headed east on Highway 190 and north on Old School Road, following it as it curved onto Highway 103 until they reached Freelat Cove Road. Dark Eagle was so excited as he remembered his childhood and began telling stories to the children, for much had changed since he left. Big Joe. Dark Eagle shouted, Big Joe Road. Many called it Highway 1168, but we called it Big Joe all the way up to the top. Dark Eagle talked the entire time until they came to Homer Road and was silenced for a while, stopping the caravan just a few miles onto Highway 1170. We take a break here. We must go somewhere alone before we move on. As the people set up camp, Dark Eagle took Isabella, Badumela, Hala, and Anaya along a pass for a meal. A lot of my people are buried here. My mother's grandmother was born and raised here, and we had family from here all the way up to Lake Providence. Back then, many people had extended families, and many would move further away so relatives wouldn't accidentally marry each other, and my great-grandmother, pointing at a grand, was no exception to the rule. She was somewhat peaceful, but she was an expert fighter and could shoot a tick of a dog's back. Dark Eagle smiled as he pointed to a few of the graves. My uncle, he told you about it, is here, and our family is all over here. I wish my sons were here to see this. Our people were proud people who could date themselves back as far as the children of the exile in Israel. Anaya was taking pictures. I have the next best thing right here, as she snapped pictures. They started walking alongside the gravesite as Dark Eagle kept quiet and reminisced about his childhood. I'm glad he came home. Dark Eagle said. Isabella smiled, me too. You needed this walk down memory lane. Dark Eagle finally took everyone back to camp when Fear and This started growling, forcing everyone into combat positions. A black bear stood on its hind legs before Hala stopped them from kicking. Put your weapons down, she commanded. Hala slowly walked up to the bear. We mean you know Han. She talked to the bear for a moment, and the bear sat down on the grass. Here, we have food at the camp. Come with us and eat, and you can be on your way. Hala told the rest to go ahead and let the rest of the group know what to expect. Hala, with Fear by her side, and the black bear took their time getting to the camp, and Hala was so happy to talk to the bear. As they made their way to the camp, Anaya, Ace, and some warriors met Hala. We prepared everyone to meet our new friend. Uncomfortable at first, but eventually, everyone welcomed the black bear, and they enjoyed a splendid meal and rested for the night. The following day, they were all prepared to continue their journey. Hala said goodbye to her newfound friend and headed to an abandoned town named Banki. Dark Eagle guided them toward Highway 84 and finally reached Highway 65 on Dark Eagle shouted, the last highway, this highway right here, will take you straight to Tallulah and then further north to Lake Providence. In just over 2 months, they finally arrived in Tallulah, Louisiana. Dark Eagle's youngest uncle, Iber, approached and embraced him with a firm embrace. When the man arrived telling us you were coming, he just couldn't believe it. Ever since you and your brother left all those years ago, he thought he would never see you again. Dark Eagle shook his head. He know, but little did we know it was about plan and a splendid plan at that. This is my wife, Isabella, and our great nieces, Hala and Anaya, and their brother, Badumela. Saka's grandchildren by Tablita and Abba's son, Libert, whom we now call Banjeniekebu. Hala, Anaya, and Badumela approached the baby alongside Fear and This. Good Lord, what kind of dog is that enormous-looking creature? Dark Eagle smiled. We have an entire battalion of this, but we left them back at that old truck stop. They are hyenas from Africa. Look, there is so much to tell. We must get these people settled in, and we can talk while doing so. Ibev looked at the crowd. There are a lot of elderly and children here. He hesitated. Well, they abandoned Tallulah many years ago, just like most of the state. Many live here in the wooded areas to avoid being attacked by those sky people who shoot us for sport. You can live here, but it's dangerous. Dark Eagle laughed. These little children and even the elderly are skilled warriors and have been blessed by Sabas himself. These are not all. About 3 or 4 more groups are coming. Scratching his head, Ibev said. How do you expect to feed so many? Dark Eagle smiled. We have come prepared. We have brought plenty of seeds, fruits, vegetables, and, of course, herbs. Until then, how's the fishing on the Mississippi? Ibev looked at Dark Eagle. Don't think it will even run out, plus there's plenty of ducks, coons, and deer around as well. Ibev saw it dark. Eagle around town while Hala, Anaya, and Badumela got on their horses along with Fear and This, walking by their side, and headed toward Lake Providence to meet their grandparents. They saw no one until they came to Wilmen. Badumela whispered, men are hiding in the trees, following us. Anaya said, easy, but they are curious, not dangerous. The men followed until Anaya shouted, yellow. The man ran off. What's wrong with them? Badumela asked. Hala shrugged her shoulders, you tell me. They continued north for Alpha Mile, and Fear and This growled and stood in front of Hala and Anaya's horses. Who are you, and what do you want? They heard a voice but saw no one. How is it that a man of Sabas hides in the darkness? Face me, or be on your way, shouted Anaya. Badumela grabbed 2 stars from his pouch and twirled them between his fingers as 2 men came forward. We don't want any trouble. We are not used to seeing magnificent beasts like that, and your clothing looks like ours, but it has a unique look. Hala said, as your people, we sold share the same customs and traditions, but we are from Arizona. Sabbath has sent us here to see our grandparents and bring his people peace, for we have enjoyed hiding the brush since we left the lul. Sabbath has not given us fear, but has given us peace. I am Hala, and this is my brother and sister, Anaya and Badumela. We are from the Tablita clan, come to see our grandparents, Tablita and Abba. The man then said, I am of the Tablita clan, and I don't know you. Hala and Anaya jumped off their horses and had the man with a big smile as she told Farah and this to sit. We are daughters of Banjeni Kebu, oh, I forgot, you call him Liberté. The man's face lit up. I haven't heard that name in 30-something years. I am Boldewa, his brother. This is Uday and the baby. Hala and Anaya shouted. Uncle Boldewa. Hala wiped a tear from her eye. We have heard so much about all of you. She took out her tablet and showed Boldewa a picture of Banjeni Kebu and Theo. Family, is he a king or something? He looks like royalty. Anaya smiled. We all are. Boldewa and Uday stepped in while Boldewa turned to the men and told them to go ahead of them and gather his brothers and sisters and meet them at his parents' house. Uday looked at the young ladies. I am Uday. Your father saved my life many years ago on his way to Arizona. Anaya nodded. Yes, he has told us of you. Uday continued, I'm sure, but he might be the first Anacatasi converted, and I believe we and formed a family among your people. He is a good man. When you see him again, please tell him he said hello and thank you. Hala said. Edo is that with people, and now we have computants and anacatas that live with us, and collectively we are called mestizos. We cover most of the western region serving Sabbath. Uday said, Sabbath is able. And they all said, yes, he is. This thing with Benjan struggled with the name, Liberté. What is it? Pointing to her tablet. Anaya said, it's a tablet, a computer. Uday continued, it must be seen amongst the people, for they fear it is evil. Anaya smiled, we are well aware, and we will print them out before we get there, so you can have them. They talked along the way and started seeing a large group gathering at a large old two-story house. Hala looked at Farah and this, these are my people, don't harm them, do you hear me? Ibev looked at Hala, they are very trained, and they act as if they understand you. Anaya smiled, they do. Farah and this walked alongside them. The people avoided the animals out of fear, but Farah and this just walked without making a sound. Ibev looked at the animals, and as he looked up, he started introducing people, this your cousin men, Stli, Ichaka, and Kamastli. They shook hands and had people along the way. Citlali, Istli, Isel, Masatl. At the door, Ibev said, more cousins Kwayi, Tunau, Lafayette, Ignoyotl, Iwikatl. The house was full inside and out. Ibev took Anaya and Hala by the hands when he entered the house. Your uncles Mekwi, Seke, and Cheske. Your aunts Tetest, Ayita, Helon, Isi, Lomaonba, and Magaskabi. And of course, your grandparents, Tablita and Abba. There were hugs and kisses as they all cried. Abba said, baby, let me look at ya. Squinching her eyes, she turned and told one of her grandchildren, go, reach me my eyeballs paint ya, on the shelf there. Hala and Anaya had a strange look on their faces as they turned and looked at the baby, eyeglasses. Banjini Kibu tried to help them out before they left with some of the words they used, but Hala and Anaya sometimes had to piece together what they were saying. Abba put on her eyeglasses. Gal, you deaf. That's that thing you got in your ears there, Anaya said. Oh, I forgot about that. She put her earpiece in her pocket and said, no, I hear just fine, Grandma. Abba just looked Anaya and Hala over a bit. Yep, it's been a long time, but I do see my son in jail. Badumela achieved being Hala, but she grabbed him. This is our youngest brother, Badumela. Abba shouted as she laughed. Now, that boy looks just like his father. And he loved that name. Abba looked around, asking, where is he now? Hala said, is still in Arizona? Tablita shouted, Arizona. Why, in God's name the boy sent two girls halfway across the country? I'm gonna give him something to talk about when he see him. Tablita was old and frail as his grandson, sick, helped him stand up. Now, I'm a meet now. Anaya said, no, Grandpa, we are about to engage in war, and send the children and elderly here until it is over. An order by Sabas. Tablita sat back down, and paused for a moment. Oh, okay, he knows better than that. Why the rest of ya is standing around for? Get that pit started and cook something to eat. We will celebrate and find my grandchildren somewhere to freshen up and rest a bit. Gone now. Men and women rushed off in excitement to prepare the feastas. Tablita and Ava continued talking to Hala and Anaya. Badumela went outside to play with Fear and this. Tablita asked, how in the world did that boy get clear across the country? Hala said, it took him 8 years to get there. Ava laughed, baby, now, I ain't no genius, but even my slow self can get there in less time than that, 8 years. Hala laughed. No, he stopped a few times before he made it there. Sabas has called all his people together, Bacatilians, Anacatas, and even Computans. They call us mestizos. We live in a community of enlightened people that Sabas has blessed. We are an extensive section of the western coast with our father and uncle Dark able to guide us. Everyone in the room had a strange look on their face. Hala said to them, after the feast, the first thing in the morning, we will have Holion, for Sabas will show great signs and many wonders that you have never seen before. Badumela had fallen asleep between Fear and this, and Hala woke him up, get up and take a bath. Badumela said, I'm okay, I'm going back to sleep. Grabbing him by the arm, if you don't get up and go up there and take a bath, little boy. Badumela was amid, why are you always telling me what to do? You ain't, Mammy. Anaya stepped in, we are your oldest sisters, and it's our hope to take care of you until we get home, now go and take a bath. Hala and Anaya went upstairs, freshened up, and took a nap. They were awakened by large drums and music and the powerful aroma of different food they had never smelled before. They rushed downstairs, and Anaya asked, what is that smell? It smells so good. Ava smiled, that's an underground pit with a whole lot smothered in all types of seasonings, got some fried cabbage, buttermilk, crackling cornbread, candied jams, corn, just the works baby, just the works. Now, let me get back in the kitchen. And them strange-looking dogs of Jay just sitting on the gurry, looking stranger than ever. Fair and this stood up as they walked outside and followed Hala and Anaya everywhere. About an hour later, Darkiago and his wife rode up on his chores. The people pointed to Hala and Anaya as they all met and walked into the house. It's been a long time since you've been here, but some people pointed me to your location. I was trying to raise you on your earpiece, but I realized that they are not used to technology, so I came on my way. Your battalions what at that truck stop, but they have plenty of food to eat and rest comfortably. Hala looked at her grandparents, be back. In a few. Ava looked at Darkiago as Hala walked outside and grabbed her earpiece. Whose child you be? Darkiago smiled, my mother is Temik, and my father is Jacob, they have been gone for a long time now. Ava paused for a moment as she thought about Darkiago's words and then said, oh, I know you. You're Abraham and your brother Sheke. Anaya interrupted, our grandfather is Sheke. Ava continued, Abraham is your great uncle, okay. Remember when you and your brother were fighting over? What was that girl's name? Darkiago smiled gaining embarrassment, Isabel smiled, Emily. Darkiago trying to change the subject, oh, I'm sorry, this is my wife Isabel again. Ava interrupted him, Emily. Yep, that was it, and you know that gal got 25 kids by 6 different men. Tablita, shaking his head, Ava, now you outquit that gal had 15 kids by 5 men. Ava said, she still ain't no good, to no man. Here she lives over there in Mississippi now, working on her septimo marriage. Who fallen out to marry her but? With her old towel. Need to see it down somewhere. Tablita looked at Darkiago, pager no mind. Ava said. Darkiago looked at Hala as she returned, we shall be on our way back pretty soon. Hala said, yes. We will have Holion tomorrow and be on our way by noon, I just told our battalions. Tablita said in surprise, you girls have a battalion? Of your own. They said together, yes, sir. Tablita was in tears. Sabbath has blessed my boy and my grandchildren. I named him Liberty because when your grandmother told me she was pregnant, I myself was going through it, but the weight was lifted off me, and I felt peace. I told your grandmother it would be named Liberty, for it was our liberation. Liberté was the motto of France and the Republic of Haiti, and it kept showing up before she told me she was pregnant. Don't get me wrong, I love Sabbath and always will, but that announcement filled me with the spirit of liberation. The day I left, well, that night, I had a dream, and I heard a loud and powerful voice speak to me, behold, Benjeniekebu, for he is blessed. It wasn't until I carried out that name the day I left, and I turned around, that I knew Sabbath carried him. Anaya said, we are the Tablita clan in Arizona. So emotional, Tablita and Abba started pressing and thanking Sabbath. At 5 a.m. the following day, many men, women, and children in Telul from Arizona came to the Holy Heaven. Tablita demanded that all kinsmen be there. Hala and Anaya were in front of the crowd. Hala looked at the people as they approached. Ezequiel 3:12 says, the Spirit lifted me up, and I heard a great rumbling sound behind me, blessed be the glory of the Lord in his dwelling place. The crowd said, Amen. Hala continued. For what you're about to see, experience, and feel is all the power of Sabbath. My Father has taught me, and many others who are not of who is are now a part of who is. Yes, present with you were once our enemies, but now they are our brothers in the Almighty. Anaya cried out, Anacatas. People from their caravan stood up and shouted, No, mestizos, for we are united as one. Anaya cried out, again, computans, and some people stood up, No, mestizos, for we are united as one. And she shouted for the last time, Bacatilians. All her people stood up and shouted, No, mestizos, for we are united as one. Anaya continued, Divide and conquer is the oldest game in the book. Now they call all of who live in peace, mestizos. She shouted, Mestizos. The crowd stood up and started pressing Sabbath, and the Holy Hymn began. Some read the Torah, some listened to songs, but all praised Sabbath. Anywhere of the time, for it was the same, many started speaking other languages and showing signs of enlightenment. Some began to be afraid, and others began pressing harder as the crowd from Arizona began to help those that had been enlightened. The children from Arizona started speaking to the people, showed their gifts, and assisted the newly blessed. Hala shouted for the people to listen, saying, on the days of Pentecost, they were all together in one place. Suddenly a sound like the blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house where they were sitting. They saw what seemed to be tongues of fire that separated and came to rest on each of them. All of them were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit enabled them. Also spoken by the prophet Joel, I will pour out my Spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy, your young men will see visions, even on my servants, both men and women, I will pour out my Spirit in those days. And they will prophesy. I will show wonders in the heavens above and signs on the earth below, blood and fire and billows of smoke. The sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and glorious day of the Lord. And everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. This has happened to us today. Listen to the children and people who will be left here and learn the art of Sabbath and the gifts. These little children, along with Tarkiego and, of course, our elders. She looked toward Tarkiego and smiled. We have a warp ruin in our neck of the woods and must be there with our father. Tablita was excited and still pressing Sabbath, but they grabbed Abba, and they grabbed a few bags of food and walked Hala and Anaya to their doors. Tablita said, Sabbath has made me proud, and tell my son how proud I am of him as well. It's been a long time since Sabbath took him away from me, bats about plants are better than men. Hearing the girls together, Abba said, Yoniakiuka Nawakatanka and Hala and Anaya shook their heads in agreement. Yes, we know, honor the ancestors and God the Creator. Together Tablita and Abba hugged them and went off pressing Sabbath together. They rode their horses about a mile up the road before seeing their men waiting for them on Skycraft. Anaya looked at Hala and smiled, let's go home. The people who had been took 2 weeks renovating some old houses and an old community college and started placing individuals with families. Dark Heroes Battalion was also left to protect and fortify the area until the next group arrived. Collecting all the overcrafts and skycrafts, they rode to where the second caravan instructed them to exchange skycrafts, and returned home. Just miles away from home, Hala and Anaya opened a secure line. Liberté, come in, Banjenie Kebu said. Okay, yeah, you got jokes, easy, was all well. They both started telling Banjenie Kebu what happened, and they was in tears. This wasn't a mission of fair, but salvation. Anaya said. This was about way of bringing all of us together. They are learning to fight, they were enlightened, and the children were teaching them how to use their gifts separately and together. Banjenie Kebu was in tears again, and Hala and Anaya heard him pressing Sabas in the background. As Hala continued, many started settling all up and down Highway 65 from Telul, Ashley, Sonheimer, Alsace, Transylvania, and Hallibrook as far as Lake Providence, and some scattered to the eastern woodlands as far as the Mississippi River. They welcomed many, especially after the residents became enlightened, but a few believed they were involved in witchcraft. This division caused the people who had gifts to return to the old areas they had once lived in, and the rest stayed in hiding. Those that disagreed with the people's new way of life started moving westward toward Delhi, Louisiana. The locals didn't accept the technology and said their gifts were from Satan. But above all, their association with the computants and Anacatas was a sure sign of blasphemy. Out of respect, many didn't use their gifts or technology around the people, but insisted that Sabas had given them their gifts and still regarded them as their people and protected them from harm. The converts were no longer afraid to fight anyone, for Sabas had restored the courage they had long lost because of the bullying of the Anacatas and the fear of the Avenians. Some of the surrounding Anacatas tested the children and elders of Arizona, but their respect was established and they was no longer tested afterward. In Arizona, the months had passed quickly, and a year had suddenly arrived, and the last group had packed up their things and were getting ready to make their journey. Before them, the other group had died, and some triple-as relatives tried to keep their families together on their trip. All were successful missions with no incidents to report. The last group only consisted of 200 people and 2 battalions, Hala and Anaya, to escort them while the others rested or stood guard around the perimeters. Banjenie Kebu had spent much of his time with Abooksigun that year. Especially after hearing the stories his daughters had shared with him about the time spent with his father. He knew it was a purpose for Abooksigun and knew, like when he left his family, that Abooksigun's purpose would be a great one. Regretting spending time with his father before he left, he decided he wanted to spend plenty of time with his son, not knowing if or when he did see him again. Banjenie Kebu taught Abooksigun all that he went through and saw on his journeys and how he ended up in Arizona. He spoke about the prophet Zeta and how he received his son and told him to make sure he wore his necklace and his son around his neck and kept it out of sight, how it represented his bloodline. They laughed and joked around. Abooksigun was proud to be Banjenie Kebu's son and never thought about why his father was telling him all he was telling. They just enjoyed the time together. One day they went fishing near Verdugo Park. Banjenie Kebu was in deep thought when he heard Abooksigun. He always hear you and Memi say, "A penny for your thought." Banjenie Kebu laughed and grabbed Abooksigun by the shoulder. It means, what are you thinking about? He was thinking about all the times Satan has tried to separate this family but has failed. Sabas has always revived and restored peace. Abooksigun, leaning against a tree cake, what do you mean? Banjenie Kebu smiled. Well, I know you know of the story of Ageni and Dick, but let me tell you of Skidmore Claiborne, like Ageni. He was another lone man that's of our family history because of love and his family. He raised his only sister as a daughter. They called her auntie and her children and grandchildren called her by that name. While I'm thinking about it, she was also Ageni's great-grandmother. Skidmore was born in 1834 Pulgadas, North Carolina, and they said they lost their father in Georgia during an event called Whipping Them. So, their father who was either sold or separated during this event. If you asked me, he probably died if they had done that to me. He would peg gun down, not without taking 1 or 2 with me. Banjenie Kebu saw Abooksigun was listening and took a seat on the ground. Abooksigun said, "Whipping Them, I remember reading that story, but I didn't know it had something to do with my family." Banjenie Kebu smiled. It very much did. Abooksigun cut him off again, and Banjenie Kebu just listened, were a group of men, women, and children who were kept in holding pens at a racetrack outside Savannah for a week to allow buyers to inspect them like cattle before bidding on them. Benjenikebu said, yes, it was. Abooksigun continued as Benjenikebu tried not to interrupt Abooksigun when he spoke to make sure it was correct and to see what he knew. The buyers would pull the slabs, mouths open, look at their teeth, make them perform exercises to see if they were fit and ask if they could still breathe and with the women, well, he'd rather not say. It was also the largest slab auction in over 2 days. They caged it weeping them because families were being pulled apart, and everyone was crying and screaming. Abooksigun paused as felt saddened to speak about it. It ran the entire 2 days non-stop, also, therefore, weeping them. Some believed Sabas was crying as well. Benjenikebu said, I believe it was. Benjenikebu smiled because Abooksigun's enthusiasm and energy impressed him by telling the story. Now, this is what is written, but I'm quite sure the slabs would tell us a different story because it was, after all, a liquidation sale. Benjenikebu said with a sad look on his face. Abooksigun said. And now they enjoyed raping men, women, and even children. Paps. Abooksigun paused for a second. What stood out in my mind was how they sold 3-month-old babies for like $1,200, but men $250 and then had the nerve to give each slab $1 when they sold them, $1. Abooksigun sat there in silence for a second before Benjenikebu spoke, and it was, as he was saying about Emir Skidmore Claiborne. I'm unsure how they ended up in Georgia from North Carolina, but your guess is as good as mine. Maybe the Butler family was the family's name who sold the slabs. Perhaps they had dealings with the owner of Skidmore and his mother's master. But they sold him and his mother to a man named Emir Claiborne. It so happened that they were one of the last ones sold and got a deal for the two of them. He believed it was $400, a 2-for-1 sale. Later on, his mother had a child with another man, and Skidmore promised to take care of the child as his own. Their mother's name was Ludie Claiborne. Ludie, or it might have been Lula cause they didn't know how to read or write back then. She was born in 1876. The pain of his mother's death, the Civil War, and a few other factors drove Skidmore to Louisiana. Benjenikebu picked up his tablet, searched it for 2 seconds, and said, here it is. Showing it to Abooksigun, Benjenikebu said. This is the 1880 census, Quarta Ward, Madison, Louisiana, USA. Here read it. Abooksigun grabs the tablet and reads. Head, Skidmore Claiborne age 46, wife, Jane Claiborne age 40, son, Eli Claiborne age 15, son, William Claiborne age 10, son, Isaac Claiborne age 8, son, Chips Claiborne age 7, son, Ensign Claiborne age 6, sister, Ludie Claiborne age 4, and son, Louis Claiborne age 1. Abooksigun paused. Who are these other people? Benjenikebu said, I'm not sure they might have been relatives or friends, but it's clearly another family, the Johnson family. Skidmore's children called her auntie, and the name stuck with her. Auntie later married Jake Wilson, and they had a large family, and our bloodline continued through Catherine Wilson, their daughter. Hours had passed, and they had realized the time had slipped by them. Benjenikebu said, we didn't even get a chance to feast, but you have to go tomorrow, so let's go home to get something to eat so that you can get some rest. You have a long journey ahead of you. Abooksigun grabs Benjenikebu's hand. I'm going to be all right, Abs. Sabas is on my side. Benjenikebu, try not to cry, son, I just don't want to see you go, and out of that, Mommy and your sisters and all your brothers are waiting for us for your feast. We just want a biryani fresh feast. Abooksigun smiled, we talked more than we did anything else. The only thing we did was unloaded the tackle boxes. Benjenikebu wrapped Abooksigun's hair. It's okay, it was well worth the time.